Have you ever volunteered to do something, and then a while later it occurs to you that what you were thinking that was going to be about this big ends up, it's obviously going to be this big, and you go, what was I thinking? Yeah. Well, this is the story of one of my most important, what was I thinking, moments. I was a chaperone at my son's 4th grade overnight at Camp Chingachgook, a YMCA camp on Lake George. We arrived, we went to our cabins with our luggage. I was, of course, signed to a girls' cabin with another woman. And then the cabins went and sat together for lunch. There was an announcement at lunch. Each cabin will be able to entertain everyone. After dinner tonight, we'll go to our gathering room next door with a fireplace, and you can sing a song, recite a poem, or whatever you want. Well, my other chaperone said, do any of you girls have an idea of what we could do? And the 8 of them just looked back at us blankly. And so she looked at me, you know that look. And I said, well, I recently heard an Iroquois story about why bear has a stubby tail. And that's fine, except for the day he goes into the woods and starts bragging about it to all the different animals. And each one of you girls could be a different animal. And what I'll do is, I'll set you up sitting by the side of in a line to the side of the fireplace. And when I, as Bear, come up to you, and then Bear saw, you'll whisper to me, chipmunk, or whatever you decided on, and then we'll have a little conversation, and Bear will say how wonderful his tail is, and it's too bad that your tail isn't as wonderful. And then Bear will go on to the next person. How does that sound? Everyone thought. I said, oh, but none of you can be fox, because fox is the last animal that Bear meets, and fox decides to teach Bear a lesson, and that's the rest of the story. So everyone was happy. We finished our meal, we went outside, and for this first activity, the chaperones were just on the sidelines. We were in this big open field. It was a day in early October. The sky was blue. I could feel the warmth on my face and my arms. And up on a little rise, there were a bunch of trees that had those yellow leaves on them. And wind blew a whole bunch of them down, and they looked like tiny little golden yellow birds swooping down onto this playing field. It was beautiful. And I was admiring them when all of a sudden, all of these kids started screaming, and half of them started chasing the other half. Oh, did I mention there were 4 4th grade classes? So it was a total of 100 4th graders. And so they're screaming, and that's when I had my, what was I thinking moment. I was going to tell a story to these hooligans in a few hours. I was a completely untrained storyteller at this point in time. This is 23 years ago. I had casually told stories that I had heard whenever I had been put in charge of a small group of children, you know, like 4 to 6 kids or something, while we're waiting to do something. My mother always was of the opinion, keep a child occupied. Do not let them find their own occupations. Channel their energies. So that's all I had been doing, and now I had volunteered to tell to 100 hooligans and about 40 adults between the chaperones and the YMCA staff. What was I thinking? What could I do? Well, our schedule was fully booked. There was no little, and a half an hour for each cabin to get ready for their performance that night. No, there was nothing like that. So then I thought, well, I have to go through with it. You know, you usually get stuck going through with it in these cases. and I tried to remember everything that Iroquois storyteller had said and every gesture he had made. All too soon, we were finished with our dinner, we went into the gathering place, and the cabins were being called up one at a time to entertain the group. And then our cabin was called. So I looked encouragingly at the girls and said, "It's our turn." And we went up and they lined up. And so then I turned around to the audience and said, "This is an old Iroquois story. Long, long ago, when animals could still speak." And I paused there for breath, but I realized I could hear the fireplace crackling. It was as quiet as it is here right now. It was completely magical. But then I went on because I didn't want to lose them, you know. And I went through and, it worked out very well. Well, there was Robin. When Bear bragged about how big and bushy his tail went all the way from me to you, Robin said, "What would I do with a tail like that? I probably couldn't even fly. And if I could fly, my tail would get stuck in the trees. I wouldn't want a tail like yours." So Bear had to say, "Okay, Robin, see you later." And then there was a girl, she whispered who she was, Chipmunk, but then she kind of froze. So luckily Bear was ready now for these little challenges and just asked questions she could answer with yes or no. So it all went really, really well. And we got many compliments, a nice round of applause and many compliments afterwards. That night when I was in my sleeping bag, in the bunk bed, in the cabin, I was going over all that had happened in that little performance of mine. Well, really, it wasn't my performance. It was the performance of all of us, telling that ancient tale. And it was beyond magical. It was, I don't know that I can even explain it. I got an adrenaline surge. That's how deeply it affected me. And I realized that I was going to have to learn about storytelling, or I would regret it the rest of my life. Now, at this point, I was 45 years old. I had a master's degree in computer science. I had been in the computer field for almost 25 years. I had no idea what I was going to do with storytelling, but I was absolutely positive that I had to pursue this, or I would regret it the rest of my life. Now, some of you might be thinking, age 45 is a little old to find your vocation. But I think Grandma Moses would agree with me that, you know, one of those, what are those nice sayings that they were saying earlier? Better late than never. So, it's been a wonderful 23 years. Starting with classes with Janine Laverty and weekend workshops and storytelling conferences and festivals and performances just like this one. So I'd like to leave you with saying that I hope that each of you has had at least one of your "what was I thinking" moments end like mine did, happily ever after. Thank you.